I'm not sure I was attracted to photography. I think I was attracted to film. I mean, I was aware of photography, but I think that when I've been thinking about it lately, I think it was film that attracted me more, especially black and white film, and especially film noir. And I think that it came from the books also, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. So I think the imagery, I couldn't capture it in painting. I mean, I tried to be a painter, and I wasn't a very good painter. So I think, like in life, it was fortuitous to meet Gene Smith when I met him, because I was ready for someone to show me another direction. Say if I was to have met Jimi Hendrix, I did meet him, but to meet him in a way where he would sit down and show me how to get it right, how to play the guitar, then I would have become a guitar player. But I met Gene, so he was the one. If I had met Matisse, it might have helped me understand painting better. So it was like, I think there was somebody there that could show me a direction. It was like if I had met Fellini, probably I would have pursued film. I just needed someone to carry me somewhere, take me on a journey. The music is, the music comes out of the ground. I mean, if you listen to a bass player, you get that beat. It's from the soul. So, when I was a little kid running around my neighborhood, I would have my music. I mean, you couldn't go out the door without your music. It'd be like, running down the street or getting on your bicycle. You'd be making some kind of sound. You go da 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 da, and that. But it also comes from watching westerns, because they used to have that music behind it all the time. So you had that, and then you'd make up your own, because each moment you'd have to have your music. I guess when we get older, we start to talk to ourselves, but when you're a little kid, you have music, you have sounds, so you're like taking them into your body. So I was constantly surrounded by music, and really, I wanted to be a musician. I just couldn't bring it into my body. I could bring the sound, but I couldn't bring the discipline that it takes to be a musician. And I'm lucky that I was able to, actually speaking, I probably play my camera like one would play a guitar. I think that I understood the choreography of that movement, so that someone told me that in my sleep I'm doing this, like with the old Leica. And I think that that's how, when I imagine myself as a guitar player, you do that. So, yeah, I think it's all there. I had a conversation with Rena Effendi, who's a really good friend, just the other day on that subject. We really both feel that when you shoot film, it forces you to think. When you shoot digital, it's all rock, that. But when you shoot film, you really have to think, and you can't see it, so therefore you're constantly questioning whether you actually got it. And when you approach something, you're not doing the chimping thing. You're really approaching it almost with the camera here, and you're like looking to see. And I think it's more about how we see things. With digital, everything is so fast that you can actually see what you're shooting when you're shooting, but you're not thinking, because you're already creating. When you shoot film, you're framing. You're trying to get it in that box. But you're also, because if you're insecure like I am, you're like, oh man, did I get it? So, okay, I'll try it over here, or I'll try it over there. Maybe I'll go down on my knees. But on digital, you see it and you go, oh, I got it. And I think that's a problem. Also, I think that you lose your humanity, because when you're taking a picture, you're having a conversation. And if you're busy looking at the screen, you're not participating in the conversation. When you're shooting, particularly with a Leica, you're shooting, but you're also talking. You're also having this dialogue. Your eyes are very important to you, because you really have to get their contact. When you're shooting, you're looking at the screen. I mean, when I shoot digital now, I shoot without looking. I just turn it off. First up, we sold the store. What that means is that we gave it away. We didn't see it coming. We were all too busy with other things. So the photographers are not getting paid the money they should be paid. And the rights, they've lost everything. And it's going to get worse and worse. And you have to find a way to take it back before it slips too far away. Because what they're asking of the photographer today is ridiculous. They're asking the photographer to become a video artist, sound engineer, everything. And then they're paying them peanuts to do that. So that's the first thing. We have to take it back. We have to find someone, because we really gave it away. We just didn't see it coming. We just simply said, oh yeah, 100 years, you know, whatever. Sure, for an extra 100, you can have my rights, no problem. And that's what they did. And they said, okay. And the next thing they know, their images are like, you download them, you can move them, you can do this, you can manipulate them. You have no rights. And for me, that's the biggest crime of all, because everybody did it with both eyes open, and in the end, the photographers are taking it in the neck. But I think, again, I did a trick. I call it a trick. I decided that I was going to take the power back. I was listening to Rage Against the Machine, so might have been influenced. And I decided I couldn't get anyone to let me cover Obama. I couldn't. They wouldn't give it to me. And I was really upset about it for a moment. And I said, screw this. I said, I'm going to do it anyway. So with this Italian friend, a photographer named Alessio Ramanzi, he's great. Comes from Syria and says, hey, we go get in a car and we go take some pictures. I said, yeah, but we ain't got no assignment, we got no money. So he said, well, who cares? And it's true, who cares? Nobody cared. So we got into a car, and on the eastern seaboard, I did a thing called Crossing the Battleground, Ohio. And so I went and photographed this back and forth between Romney and Obama and the campaigns and everything. And I did it with a monochrome that Leica lent me, and to play with. And it was great. It was so liberating, because I didn't have no assignment. I had no money. We were living in a Motel 6. We were living on junk food, and we were just the only money we were spending on the rental car. And then sometimes we were sleeping in the car as we raced to the next place. And we literally schmoozed and did all sorts of things. Okay, I told you that story to tell you that I discovered that this was great, because in the end, this was a story that wasn't for the magazine. It was a story that's for the iPad. But the iPad isn't ready yet, but it's getting there. And I think that if we do these kind of stories and put them on the iPad, you have more room to tell these kind of stories. And that's what we have to aim for. But, okay, magazines are not going to last much longer because, you know, there's no money. But if you put this imagery on an iPad and you put that kind of story, wow, that gives you a lot. I think that photography is one of the most incredible medias to tell stories, you know? And if you can find a great writer, and the photographer and the writer, you can do it, but you become obsessed. I mean, I got obsessed with Katrina, again, a collaborative effort with Kadir Van Lohausen. He and I, we created Noor together. You know, it was, again, collaboration, sitting in a bar getting drunk, watching, you know, New Orleans get blown away, but it was talking about photography. It was like talking about art and how things are seen and what we would like to do. If we lived in a perfect world, we'd like an agency like this. And I think that those are how those things work. You know, you have these moments where you become obsessed. You know, you want to do them. You need a push sometimes. You need something to give you a reason, something to come back to. You know, Toon, who you'll meet, said to me once that you develop relationships so you have a reason to come back. But then when you're back, then your relationships, you know, they break up. But you need them for that reason. And I think that Jean-Francois says that every once in a while you need an exhibition so that you know why you're doing it. I was in art school, but my roommate was a drummer with a band called SVT, which was set up by Jack Cassidy of Jefferson Airplane, Hot Tuna, and a band of Gypsy fame. And so when you have a roommate that's a drummer who's like a, as they used to call them, babe magnet, you know, you go to the clubs with them, and all my friends wanted to be musicians, wannabes, and they were all taking photography or performance art or painting. I mean, what do you do on a Saturday night? Instead of watching Mary Tyler Moore, you grab your camera and go out and take pictures. And that's what happened. I mean, I just go out at night, every night, taking photographs of the thing. And it wasn't my culture, you know, quote unquote. The school itself actually said it. I mean, I wasn't doing the black thing. I wasn't going to, you know, photograph my roots. I was photographing punk, which was white noise. But it was the music, and it was all my friends were there. It was like that. And so I just started to take pictures. And I never thought that it was going to lead to anything. People say that my imagery is very cinematic, which is fine, they can say that. But for me, I'm a still photographer. I love the still. My photo essays are just a bunch of stills strung together, you know, like some beads on a string, you know, different shapes and everything, but they're still on the same string. And yeah, the iconic image, you know, you have these photographers out there looking for that iconic image, but that's a mistake. If you go looking for it, you're not going to find it. And if you do find it, it ain't going to have no soul. You know, you're going to have a deal at the crossroads with the devil if you go down that road. You have to be very conscious of the fact that we're observers, we're storytellers, and photography, I honestly believe photography comes from somewhere else. I believe it comes from psychology and memory. And therefore, when I look at the paintings of Jackson Pollock, I understand quite quickly what was going on with him. He was expressing something that was in his body. He's trying to get it out. And that's great. And I think that most creativity is something that, you know, when you think in terms of psychology, you've got the superego, ego, and id. And, you know, when the caveman was drawing on the walls, he couldn't talk. But he was trying to express something, he was trying to say something. Photography is just another form of drawing on the wall, except we're doing it with light. I think that if we keep it primitive, then we will get the iconic image. But if we try to get too sophisticated, then we're going to lose that. And I think that that would be tragic. And I think that's the problem with a lot of technical. We get too technical that we lose that rawness. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, if you listen to Jimi Hendrix, really listen to Jimi Hendrix, we're talking headphones, there's a lot of mistakes. If you listen to those early albums, he's making a lot of mistakes. If you know anything about guitar playing, but who cares? The man was playing so fast. It's that rawness, that way he got that sound that you care about. So he makes a few, you know, but hell. That's why it's better to listen to Hendrix on disc as opposed to on high sophisticated computers or anything like that, because you need to hear the scratches in the records. You need to hear that. That's because, you know, on my mother's side, they're Cherokee, right? So the Cherokee Indians, they believe that when you make a blanket, they were big blanket makers, that you have to put a mistake in it so the gods will not think you're trying to be perfect. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, why do we love Kappa's pictures of D-Day? I mean, why? There's every mistake in the book. But it's because of that rawness that he captured without knowing it. Because I've seen pictures that didn't mess it up in the lab. And it doesn't have the same power, it doesn't have the same impact. Sometimes you need the gods when they come down on earth and, you know, for a moment mess with us. I think you need that. I think that being perfect is boring. Therefore, trying to answer your question, I mean, for me, a still picture, an essay, it's like all of that stuff, it all comes together, you know. I'm not trying to be intellectual. I'm just trying to get something out of my body. I got into a big, I don't know, what do you want to call it, brouhaha. Actually, there's two issues that I got into. One of them, when this individual was pushed onto the tracks in New York, and the photographer took the picture. And I really studied it. I mean, I really looked at it. And I felt that I've heard different views. One of them was that the photographer was doing their job. And the other one was that they were taking advantage of the situation. I think that what I was more surprised is that there wasn't more outrage by my colleagues, because I think that when we get to the point where we start to treat people in dire situations or that are you know, less fortunate than us, and they become our art objects, that, you know, that we use them for our own manipulation. I really have a problem with that. And I know I'm accused because of the picture I took of the guy's legs blown off, but the reality was his legs were blown off. There wasn't nothing I could do. And when I took the picture, the first shot, I thought he was dead. And when he looks up, which is the picture that got published, I was in shock, but my finger was already on the trigger. So it was like a knee-jerk reaction. Wow. You try to explain that to your girlfriend and she still thinks you're a monster. So I gave up and just basically said, look, they were bombing. We were under attack. We had nowhere to go. You go to the left, there's a bomb. Go to the right, there's a bomb. The picture of the woman inside had been bombed. I mean, there was just nothing. All I could do was photograph what was in front of me and try to keep my head down. And we had the idea that if we could get out of there, get help, we'd try to bring him out. The point of the matter is the man's legs were blown up. We had no vehicle. We pick his body up, his insides would fall out. You look at one of the pictures that's in open wound, that's exactly what happened. You can't see it, but when they lifted his body, his legs detached as they're loading him into the truck. This is a truck to load up these people that were blown up. This is a guy that's on the streets. You have to accept the reason why you're there. The other boundary is that there was a photographer who arrived in a village, I think it was in Uganda, arrived in a village doing a story about these lunatics that had tortured and killed this little girl, cut off her arms, cut off her legs, and that he arrived there and he was late, and they had the funeral and they had buried the girl. He had gone to the family and convinced them that he felt it was important to photograph this atrocity, and gave them some money, and they dug up the grave, and he photographed it. Now his thing was it was important. The point of the matter is it had already been documented by the local photographer. So it wasn't that it hadn't been documented, because it had. The fact that he paid the family to dig up their daughter's grave, so that's easing his conscience. But on 2 points, he not only dug up the grave and photographed it, he also photoshopped it. So he photoshopped the shot so he could enhance it. Now, we didn't know any of this, but when he was interviewed by the Pulitzer Center, or I think it was the Pulitzer Center, but when he was interviewed, nevertheless, he said it, that he dug up the grave. And somebody investigated and found out that there had been photographers that had photographed it already. And the Photoshop episode was, you looked at the picture, you could tell that it was Photoshopped, and when he was interviewed, he was asked about this, he said, well, I needed to enhance the image. So, yeah. Those kind of boundaries I have problems with. Gigi, what he did for book publishing is a trolley, but it's not just trolley, just for book publishing. He turned book publishing on its head. He was, without Gigi, there would be no Open Wound, there would be no Kosovo, there would be no Ghetto, there would be no Chains, there would be no Alex Fazzini, there wouldn't be Homeland by Nina Berman. I mean, the list is long. What Gigi did was, he was an absolute maverick who said that books and how to get books out there didn't have to be in the traditional way.